Hello, and welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Our guest today is Glenn Akramoff. Glenn, you ready to be great today?
I absolutely am.
So, Glenn, we're just not talking about horse racing, right? Can you talk about your love for horse racing?
Sure. Interestingly enough, probably about 7, 8 years ago, I'd been going to the track. Grandfather got all of family into that. Loved going to the track. But I've been going a couple of years, and then there was a club at Emerald Downs, and you bought in for $500. You got to own a racehorse, and that's all you paid. And so my wife got it for me for Christmas because I really enjoyed it, and we enjoyed it. They taught us how to be owners, and we went ahead, and after the first year, we went ahead and bought one in a small group. We'd met 3 or 4 people that we all got along. We all had the same goals, and we went and bought a horse. So we've been owning race horses for 7 years, and I got into it because I like to gamble and I like watching the horses. And the more I've got into it, the more amazing they are. You find out how.
Now, how do you tell if a horse is actually going to be successful? Like, is it based on like breeding? It's like just look at it. Like, how do you like? Is there a science or art like deciding like how to buy a horse? Like, how to decide okay, this horse might be like a winner in the future?
It's both. It's a science and an art. Yeah, the breeding. Always starts with the breeding. Of course, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a baby racehorse for races. We of course don't spend that kind of money, but yeah, you look at their breeding, and then you look at their how they're built. Like humans, there are certain humans that are built to run long, to run short, and horses are just like that. And if you look at them, and we hire a trainer who knows horses really well, and they help us pick one out. We buy one and get started.
So obviously, this isn't on the same level as Kentucky to Kentucky, right? But like, how well known is the Seattle or Seattle Washington as far as horse racing circles?
I would say it's kind of a middle range track. It's known pretty well because it's the wet when our summers are really nice. The racing is tends to be fairly competitive, and we're known for actually having pretty good crowds here, which is not every track. Even the big ones see that every day, but we do.
Is Emerald Downs the only like horse racing track in the state of Washington?
It's the only one active right now.
Okay.
There's one in Yakima, and there's one over in Tri-Cities, but they haven't run in a few years. Those tracks.
And do you ride yourself?
No.
No.
Well, I grew up riding horses a little bit, but not.
Okay. And so how many horses are you vested in right now?
Just one this year. The most we've had at one time is 4.
Okay. And like, so when these horses like go to different tracks, how do they travel? Like they go by like semi truck, they fly. Like how's that work?
They can fly.
Okay.
That's expensive, and we don't fly ours. But they go by. You can see them anytime. They've got horse trailers with somewhere between 2 and 8 horses in them, and you can see them going up and down I-5 because there are tracks in the town of California.
And is there like prime horse racing age for horses?
Yeah, they can start when they're 2. I would say it's 4 or 5.
Okay.
Is when they're at their best. They're most mature, and but horses have run really well and won big money races up to the age of 9 and 10.
Okay. So I think everyone knows like horses. Like I think Seattle Slew, some other famous ones. What about like what I'll call like the average horses that race? Like what happens to them? Like they just like live an average life. They come 5th and 6th all the time, make the owner a little bit of money. Like how's that work?
Yeah, if they were doing 5th or 6th all the time, you'd probably retire them eventually. But the lower level horses, they love their jobs just as much as the big ones, and they love to run. And so you run them when they're ready to run. You keep them healthy. And like I said, they can run. There are some horses who run past 12 years old because they like it and they stay healthy. I would say usually 8 or 9 is when they're retired. And then when they're retired, they That's one of the things that's important in racing is that you take care of your horses and you're committed to their health.
So like some kind of like retirement home for horses.
There's a couple of those. A lot of times they get another career because they tend to be athletic. So a lot of them become jumpers or trail horses or pets.
So basically, I mean, horses are basically like a pet, right? I mean, like
when they're racing, not as much because you're focused on keeping them as a primed athlete. After their career is over, yeah, a lot of times they become pets, and once they calm down because they tend to be high wired as athletes, that most of them make really good pets.
Yeah, and I might make this up, but aren't horses like kind of sentimental sometimes? Like not sentimental, but for like high strung or
yeah, especially thoroughbreds. They tend to be. Some of them are really laid back. It's amazing. I think that's the neat thing about them. They all have very different personalities, just like people. And some of them get nervous when they're on the track or get nervous around too many people. Some love it and will pose for you if you get a camera out. It's just that's what makes them so interesting. And the fact that they love to run is, and they love to please the human beings that take care of them. It's an amazing dynamic.
And how do you like pick the jockey? I'm assuming the jockey has to match a horse, right?
You try to. The trainer normally does that.
Okay.
So the owner and the trainer talk about that, but usually the trainer has a favorite that they trust with all the horses that they train, or a couple of them that they go to, and in our time we have picked our jockey a handful of times. They've either asked and said, "Do you have a preference?" And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But yeah, it's usually the trainer.
Okay. And I think they have main horse tracks, of course, Kentucky, I think New York State and California, right?
Yeah.
Are there any other like states like
Florida's very big.
Florida? Okay.
Yeah, there's probably there's a number of states that have it. Florida's a big one. Louisiana has a number of them, and as well as New Jersey.
And so you're a part-time owner of the horse, right?
We own it all the time.
All the time, okay.
Yeah.
So then how did you pick your trainer? How does that work?
Our initial trainer we picked because she was the one that was for the club. We got to know her and her husband, who both trained, and we stayed with them. They both have retired, so we've been with a couple of trainers with this horse, and we're just trying to figure it out. And this group is a partnership. I think there's 14 of us that are membership here. Normally there's just for us, there's just a couple of us that go in together, but we like the horses. It's a good opportunity. The group that we're with is really great too.
What does the term mutter mean for horse racing? What is that?
It's when it's what it sounds like when the track is really wet. Some horses hate it, and some horses just love to be on the sloppy mess. So they're called mutters.
Okay. And once you got your horse, how long did it take you to figure out, okay, this horse might make me some money or might be the real deal, or is this a process to do that?
It is a process. Sometimes it can take right away. The one that we have one running today at Emerald Downs, and her first race was very good. She didn't win, but she finished second. It's her first race ever. Her second race was not good, and so this is her third race. But she showed some talent in her first race, so you kind of get to know as you've been an owner a while. You can see whether they have ability. That you also, when you're watching it, to gamble on horses, you get to know which one be good or not. Making money is always a different thing. One of the things they say in horse racing is, if you want to make $1 million in horse racing, invest $2 million.
Yeah.
It's not and don't get me wrong, there's lots of great people out there making money, but we do it. We're not a big money outfit, so do it for the fun and be a part of it, to be a part of the horses.
Any plans on buying another horse anytime soon?
Yeah. I mean, that we would love to get another one. Our smaller group is looking at maybe buying something in the fall.
So you might not know this, but like, what goes on Emerald Downs for it's not horse racing season? It's just like closed down for the rest of the year. Like,
Well, they have they do gambling there, so they do watch horse racing from other places there. So tell it.
tell gambling or something.
Yeah, it's I'll remember what it is. Simulcast.
Okay, the simulcast. Yeah.
And then they do a lot of events. They do weddings there. They do.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a fourth floor. There's a kind of a banquet room, and they do a number of things.
Okay. So besides the horse race, what other hobbies or what else do you do for fun?
Travel a lot. My wife and I travel. I've got one more state to get to, and I've actually stayed overnight in all of them. That's as an adult. I was in most of them as a kid too. Just North Dakota.
Okay.
So not sure how I'm going to make that, but I will. And then we've traveled to Europe, Barbados this fall or this.
Any favorite places so far?
We went to the Mediterranean. I loved Italy.
Okay.
Greece.
Yeah, Italy's a great country.
Yeah, particularly Italy. I spent a lot of time in Italy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What's a place you've traveled to that you really like? Most people like, you like this place? Why? Like it would be surprising that people that you would surprise people that you say you liked it so much.
I would say it's probably. I mean, I like traveling back to my hometown, and it's a little dinky town in upstate New York, and we were just back there in July, and I love going back there because not a lot of things change, so it's kind of gives you that sense of security.
How often you get to you go back?
It's been every 4 or 5 years lately.
Okay.
We were going to go back sooner, but COVID kind of messed that up.
Yeah.
But so it was 5 years since and get to see old friends, and I have some friends who lived there since we were kids, and get to see them, and it's an old Eastern town. So.
Okay. So besides North Dakota, what's the next place you want to go to?
Well, we're actually going to Florida.
Okay.
That's the second time in the last year. We're looking at maybe retiring.
Okay. So do you think you're actually going to retire?
Me, no, I really
Okay.
won't. I just think, entrepreneur thing. I don't see me fully retire. Always be doing something.
Yeah, I think somebody called it like, somebody said that they're going to work until they're 10 toes up, meaning they're going to work until they're in the grave, right?
Right. Yeah. If physically I can't do stuff anymore, then that's a different story. But for now, I don't, a lot of people, my wife's getting ready to retire, and it's something she planned for, and I'm really happy for her. But for me, that doesn't fit.
Yeah. And I think stats show that people actually retire, like they don't do anything. Like, I think they die within 8 or 9 years, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you got to keep doing something else, because you just shut down, everything shuts down and you're going to early grave, I think.
Yeah. And I like what I'm doing. Like my son says, it's been your life's work to do what you're doing. I think I'll just continue to make my life's work until the life's up.
Yeah. So next, talk about, what does gratitude mean to you?
Gratitude? That's always an interesting one. I think for me, the true test of gratitude is when you're grateful for something that is not a positive. And so for me, an example of that is if there's someone who comes into your life, whether at work or whether a neighbor or whatever, and they aren't super positive with you, right? They challenge you in a number of ways. They make you angry or whatever. They're a gift to you if you be grateful for them. And that's been a hard learned lesson for me, of course, but I think that to me, that's what it means, is when you're grateful for things that are brought into your life that teach you, whether they're positive or negative. Yes, it's easy when you get an award and you get to stand up. To be grateful for that it's fairly easy. But when you go through a very tough time and come out on the other side and you're grateful for the lessons you learned because you know you're going to grow from it and be better for it. That's what gratitude is.
Do you think gratitude is something you can learn, or you just have gratitude from the beginning?
No, I think you can. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's times in your life when you won't have it, and you know, when I'm struggling the most, that's what I try to go to is to find something good and have gratitude. But there are times I don't use it some more and become grateful for what I have.
So what about people, how to put this, like when people like on bad times, having a bad luck, right? Maybe they lost their job or, really sick. How do you recommend they continue to have gratitude when things like seem like everything's going to shit for their lives, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and been there, done that. I think we all have. I think the I think the first thing is to either do it in the morning because it's been proven over and over, you know, that if you're positive, that you can kind of change your outcomes. You can change what's happening to you by changing your attitude. And so that starts with gratitude. And I think having struggled, recently, that's what I do is I wake up every morning and before I get up, I think of three things I'm grateful for. Even if it's I get to get up today, right? Whatever, even if it's just very basic, find something. And that's practice. And then pretty soon something the universe will conspire with you to start creating more of them. And I've watched that happen certainly in my work, but also in doing that. It's changed the way things happen. And then those things, that long list of, I mean, I had one period in my life where I had 6 weeks where every time the phone rang, and it rang a lot, it was bad news. And it got to be really difficult after 5 weeks of when is this going to end? But that's what I started doing. I said, okay, what can I find good today? What can I? And I did, and it broke, and then a lot of good things
So I could be wrong, but I think people are either predisposed to be positive or negative, right? So if someone was predisposed to be negative, how do they become positive, right? Is it a matter of like fake it till you make it? Do like fake being positive or to be the true selves? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think people are negative for a number of reasons. It's not just because you're a negative person. There's something that's happened to you in your life, or many things and you have just made some decisions about yourself that says, I am not good. I am not this. I am, and so you focus on being negative, and then that becomes your protection.
Like a self-defense mechanism, so
Yeah,
to speak.
yeah. I'm not going to be hurt by anyone or anything because I'm already negative, and I know it's coming, so I'm ready for it. That sort of attitude. And so, for people like that, it's not easy. And sometimes you need to get help. I find them in the work I do regularly. And when um, I mean, one thing is to hang out with some positive people.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah.
Because
But isn't that crazy? Like people are negative, like down, have darkness. Seems like they tend to seek out other negative and
they do.
people with darkness, right?
I think it's because they want validation that they exist.
Yeah.
And that truly is what's going on. I exist? Yeah, I exist, and I feel pain. Some of them just want people to feel what they feel.
Mhm.
I want someone to feel what I feel, this negative energy I have. And so they express their lives. But I think the message is you don't have,
Yeah.
and you can change. And the one person that controls it is you.
Yeah, definitely. And then like you talk about people being hurt from the past. How does someone like forgive what's done in the past, right?
That is hard, right? That is for me. I've had those, and the way I got through it was to realize that number one, I a few of those people I met, they were, I met them later in life, and I realized that I saw them differently because they were older. I felt they had done something to me when realizing they were just trying to live their lives, and they were doing the best they could, but they didn't know either. And so for me, there was a couple of coaches in my life who were very influential, and they influenced me some negative ways. Right? I felt like that was mistreated. Some of that might have been true, but it also is a teenager going through whatever, thinking he's a better athlete than he is and all that stuff. But you make up all those things about yourself and about the situation. And then when I met one of the coaches as an adult, I realized had nothing to do with me. He was a young coach. He was trying to figure it out himself.
So was it like you didn't realize, okay, this guy's he's an incompetent coach, no wonder.
Right.
It was something totally different, right?
Right. And so I think that's the part for forgiveness, is that realizing that, and there are some people have done awful things to each other over human history.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to diminish that or anybody's experience. But when you realize that not forgiving them is actually hurting you, not them, that really was what turned it for me.
What's that saying that if you don't forgive someone, or you say anger at someone, it's actually pouring toxic into you, not the other person, or something like that.
Yeah. And I think you give them control of your life.
And they're probably not even thinking about you.
No, they're not.
Like they're living in your head rent free, and they like who the hell's Jason? What like
that's exactly it. And so I mean, the coach remembered me, but I wasn't any, it wasn't interactions with like I remember them. So I think that's the big part, is again, you have control of what you decide to believe, and hating someone or being angry with someone because they did something to you in the past is only hurting you.
So is there anything that you think of that would be unforgivable?
That one is hard. I mean, I have some of the experiences in my life, you think, how can people do that? Especially when they do things like violence or sexual assault or whatever. But I think people can change, and you, again, that goes back to that gratitude.
Yeah.
Understanding that people have things that have happened to them that they haven't dealt with, that cause them to do certain things. And it's not an excuse for the people who do that, by the way. I don't think that you're accountable for everything you do. But coming to understand what led someone to do something helps you deal with it. But I mean, my dad was a police officer, and we had a fear of him not coming home every day, and that was a real fear. And the day he retired, you could feel it come off of us.
Yeah.
Would I be able to forgive someone who ended his life and didn't let my dad come home? I don't know that. And I know there's a lot of people who face that. So for me, it's not up to me to help them live their lives and forgive them in that way. But could I let go of it so it didn't poison me? Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like you see all the time in a court case where like someone kills someone, and they do a press conference, and the family members like, we forgive the killer. I'm like, you're a way better person than I am.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine, like, if someone kills someone close to me, I like, man, no, I couldn't do it.
I don't think I could either.
Yeah.
But I also understand that dynamic.
Mhm.
They realize that would hurt them in the memory of their family member, not the person who's going to jail for it. So, yeah, that is a brutal dynamic, and I think it's very personal.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For all of us, when we go through whatever life brings us, forgiveness is a powerful thing that actually can help you, free you. But getting to it is the whole.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah. And so you say thank you 3 times every day
In
the morning.
I actually do it now. I do it in the morning. I'm thankful for kind of the big things in my life, and then before I go to sleep, I do the same thing. What are 3 things I'm thankful for during the day?
And how long you been doing that?
Off and on for 12 years.
And have you found this made an impact on your life?
Yeah, it's interesting when things go bad and I forget to do it or I don't do it because I'm upset or whatever. It snowballs. the negativity snowballs. So
So you wake up in the morning, say thank you 3 times, have a horrible day, and then they do like fuck this day.
that's exactly why I'm not doing that. I'm not thankful for anything today. And then tomorrow ends up being, a little harder. So I have noticed a positive impact. It's interesting. It doesn't show up every minute, right? But the one thing that I've learned is that you don't know what's going on in the rest of the world. You know what's going on in your sphere, but sometimes you impact somebody or something's happening, percolating that you don't know anything about right away.
Yeah, people don't realize just by saying thank you or hi to someone, like, make their day or just, a little act of kindness might, keep someone from like killing themselves
Yeah.
or doing something bad, like you never know what someone else is going through.
Yeah, I think that's something I talk with when I go into organizations and I'm working with them. As a leader, you should always be polite. And to me, a genuine thank you and saying please rather than barking orders,
Do this now.
right, makes a big difference in how people react to you, but also in how their day goes. And like you said, you don't know sometimes, there are people who will come to work even though they've had a death in the family
Yeah.
just because I gotta do something. And you start barking orders or doing something, it just lowers them. If you say thank you, I really appreciate you doing that for me today. You can change their state. So maybe they can go home and come up with 3 things.
Yeah. So next, talk about humility.
Well, that's become a first of all, I think that's a challenge for everyone. It certainly has been in my life. Uh, a lot of life teaching me to be humble. I think it's a core principle of any good leader. Be humble. And I talk a lot about being great at something. To be great at something, you have to border on arrogance, but you have to not tell people about it. So I call it humble arrogance. And I think that for me, like gratitude, show gratitude for things go better. When I'm focused on serving someone else, life goes better for me. And I feel really good about helping someone. And to me, that's core of being humble. Is it's bigger than me. This world is, there are a lot of things more important than what I need today. And if I'm giving to people and I'm giving without expecting anything in return, then that is return.
So let's suppose let's talk about adding value, right? So I always people say, "Oh, add value, give value to people," right? Well, what about this? Right? Suppose you did some 10 times, right? Nothing really big, like small little favors, whatever, 10 times, right? And then the 11th time, you actually need some of this person. It's something like real small, like say do an intro to someone they know, right? But they tell you no. So you be like option A, fuck that guy, I'm not doing that with him again, or B, keep on giving him value, or it's another option.
Well, I think A is about would be about my ego.
Mm.
That'd be about me. And so that would be not being humble. I would I would keep doing what I do, and I have many times where I had a thing 10 years ago where I lost a job, and there weren't a lot of people that were around, and they had their lives, they were doing their own thing, and I, for a while, this is where are you, right? I need you, and ask a few people, and they were busy, or whatever. And after I got through that, I realized um, some of that was about me. I needed to be in a quiet space and learn my lesson. I wasn't going to do that with just complaining to someone about what had happened to me. And so I learned that they weren't there for me because I didn't really need them to be. And to me, it was about that time I needed to focus on healing myself and remaining humble and not being I mean, that's the dichotomy. What I'm trying to say is I had to focus internal and work on some things that I needed to work on that no one could help me. But all of those people who I thought should have been there, I've been for them since, continue to be. And do I think many of them will show up sometimes when I need them? Yeah, and I have a core that show up.
Is there a time when someone should not be humble? Like when somebody, I won't say cocky, but like overconfident and not be humble.
Yeah, I think as a leader, when there's I had an example of this where I was working in a work unit and someone got injured and severely, didn't know if he was going to make it. And someone had to be the leader that everything was going to be okay. The other 75 people know that we're going to be all right. And that was me. And I didn't hesitate. I didn't worry about being humble. I didn't worry about anybody. I needed to exude confidence, and I did. And I think the test of humility is when you don't continue when it's no longer needed, and which I did. I was getting ready to leave that organization as part of our program, and I needed to ramp back up. I had started to exit, and I had to ramp back up, and then had to fast ramp back down. But they needed me, and that's what they needed. As a leader, it was my job to do it, and I did it. And I exited fairly quickly. And was that painful for me? Yeah, but they were okay. They knew they were going to be okay. The injured guy recovered. Good.
So what do you think makes a good leader, a great leader? Is like they're self-taught, something that's having them, or like they go through different experiences. What do you think?
I think it's, um, I think your life experience. I think first of all, someone knowing as a great leader, you need to know who you are. Starts there. You need to know what you're good at and be willing to admit that. Say, okay. I always use the story that do not put me, a nail, and a hammer anywhere around each other. I just can't do it. There's lots of things I can do, but I learned very early on as a maintenance worker, early in my career, that I couldn't do that. It's awful. And so I learned to cut. I learned to cut the wood rather than use the hammer. So I think that's important to have that self-awareness of what you're good at and what you're not. Build on your strengths, help find people to cover your weaknesses, and and then I think empathy, and maybe more than that. I say this a lot. You don't have to like your team every day, the people that you lead, but you gotta love them. And everyone's
People don't realize how big a difference that is, right?
right,
Like I think we all have family members we love, but we don't like them, right?
right.
Or people were like good. Like, yeah, I think that's a big difference.
And as a leader, in order to lead people in the right direction, no matter what you're doing, you need to care about it. And you have to learn. I think there's lessons to learn in your life to be able to care about people. To know that, like we were talking about being humble, to know that people go through things that you have, both good and bad, and they will. And to know that if you care about them, they'll know. Human beings know whether someone cares about them. They have that sense, and they know if you're being sincere about it. And if what I found in my leadership career is if someone knows that I care about them, that's part of my mantra. Will help you understand that I do care about you. I care about all of you. That they will be loyal. They will give you their best. They will grow. They will likely become leaders on their own, which is really what you want. And for some people, we were talking about earlier, some people, especially in a job nowadays, as a leader, you could be the only person anyone cares about. And that's a powerful thing. It's a heavy responsibility, but it's a yes, humble, have to be grateful for what you have to be, know when to be a strong leader and when to back off, because both are needed. I see all these memes on LinkedIn, and I look at them and I go, if it was only that simple. It's very complicated to be a great leader. And I think you learn your lessons. You're willing to learn your lessons, and also skill. Everyone knows when you make a mistake. So why would you try to hide it? But if you own it and you show people, you model how to handle a mistake, which to me is you understand what that mistake was, you make up for it, you fix it, and then you learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn, and then you move on. And if we can all do that, then we learn faster. Like they say, fail fast so that you can learn faster. And that's a powerful workplace or a powerful organization that has a leader or leaders like.
So I was watching like college football earlier today, like some news conferences, and had Nick Saban, right? He said something like really like got me right. So they got beat by Texas last week, and he said, if we don't take the opportunity to learn from this failure, that's a true failure.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really like key right there.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. Um, if you've got to learn, they talk about learning lessons, and I think we do this in our lives. You don't learn the lesson fully, and something happens in your life that says, "Oh, you didn't learn that one yet. You need to go back and do it again." But I think that's the mindset. For me, as an example in my life, I was a water meter reader years ago, and I applied 13 times to move up to the next level. After the first 6, I was mad, I was bitter, and then I realized I'm not doing a good enough job. I started asking, and so every time. What was even more challenging is that after I did that, there were people that I taught how to do the job that got the job instead of me. And then I realized, well, something I can learn from. And I just kept learning and learning, and eventually I got the job. And after doing it that many times, the reward was pretty amazing. But I realized through that whole time that I had 8 or 10 lessons to learn. I could move on. And that was embarrassing because it was very public. Everyone knew in the whole organization. Glenn's tried. There's 13. Let's see. But I also knew on the last one that I was ready. I'd prepared. I checked all my lessons. I'd learned them. I remained humble. I was grateful for what I had. I'd worked harder because I wasn't working hard before. I just had assumed that I was going to get the job because I'd been there long enough. So I think that's what it is. It's just learning those lessons. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 times.
So 13 times to me that shows a lot of resilience. Can you talk about how you were so resilient during this process?
Um, like I said, the first 5 or 6 times I was like, it was devastating. I was all, I was just about. I never got to a point where I thought I would quit though. I think after that, it just became, okay, I got to learn a lesson. Talk to people who interview. And what I wanted to do more than anything was, in the process, was gain respect of the people who, not that I needed to, but that I thought were good people. Just that was part of the thing. Just wanted to earn people's respect, and that's kind of what ended up being part of it. Is learn my lesson, earn respect and trust of other people, so they know I can do the job. And I tend to be competitive and driven, and for me that was a drive. I am going to win this. I'm going to do what it takes to win and get this job. And when I got it, it would not have meant as much if I second or third. Interestingly enough, the next level that I went up took me 13 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But I knew the process. I followed the same process. I'm like, I don't know why I got to do this again, but okay. And to be fair, I was skipping a couple levels in that. Being a maintenance supervisor, a couple of levels. But I used the same model, I used the same drive, knowing how good it would feel when I got there, and it was much easier the second.
So back to caring for people, how do you, I can't think of the word I need to use, but how do you like match caring for people to like when you actually need to let them go? How you combine that? Because it seems like you care for someone, you're not gonna fire them, right? So how do you match those two
Yeah,
things?
I don't think that's true, actually. Um, I learned a long time ago. I had a coworker. He uh, he he was he was a drug addict. He had stayed to work at our workplace. He'd been popped on drug tests, and he got finally they fired him. Then he came back. He got clean, and then he came back as a temporary maintenance worker and worked his way back up. And one of the things he told me, because we worked closely together, was he was so thankful for the guy because it took him to his bottom, and he went right after. He said if he hadn't fired me, I would have done. I would keep on going the way it was. I might not have. So I've always remembered that conversation and realized that sometimes, as letting someone go, I'm helping them to their bottom. And it is painful. It is horrible to let someone, if you care, especially if you go about caring for them. It's very hard. But I've let a lot of people go, and a lot of the reason is because I knew that. And I've had a couple of them who knew I cared, knew I needed to let them go because of various reasons. And actually, twice I fired people and got a hug because they knew I cared, and they knew that I was transparent about, I have to do this. This is what's best for the organization, and it's my job to protect the organization, to protect the team, and to help you at the same time. And that's what we're doing. And so I think the big thing is you don't dispose of them. You don't just let them go out into the world. If they want to stay engaged, you stay engaged with them. You still care about them. Help them get through whatever they are. If they need to go to rehab, if they need retraining, whatever they need. Because there's also a lot of people that over the years that I have that were in the wrong job, found the job they wanted to be in, and their life was so much better. So I think that's how I.
So next, talk about this. I think I found this on your LinkedIn or maybe your website. Successful teams have successful individuals.
Yeah. It, I talk about there is nine. That's the old thing. There's no IT. Yes, there is.
Remember, I don't know if you're a basketball fan, but Kobe Bryant said one time, "There's no I in team, but there's an I in win."
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a take on that. Because a team is made up of a group of individuals. And if one or most of the individuals are not in good place, aren't healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally, then the team can only be as good as their weakness, that weakness. So individuals need to be built on. So you need to develop employees, you need to develop your team members in your organization as individuals, as well as part of it. And we were talking earlier about people who have a negative, just have a negative outlook on it. If they're in the team, they can, people say they're a poison to the team. Well, only in that they're not being fully utilized and they can't free themselves of that negativity. So you have to work on developing. I think that's missed in a lot of things, including, and I think Kobe Bryant played for a coach who got that he let the individuals be the individuals, both in Chicago and in LA. Let them be who they were, encourage them, but help them and learn and become the people they need, but also brought them together, helped them mold their egos into a championships, and Phil Jackson won a lot of them. And I think that's really what it's about. That's why I think there is no team. And people miss that. Sometimes it's painful because if you have someone an individual who is failing in their life, and that is going to impact your team. So why not have them help them become successful? Team.
I know a lot of people talk about Phil Jackson. Oh, he won all the championships because such great players, right? Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaq. But then, reverse it, like Michael Jordan didn't win a championship until Phil Jackson got there.
Right.
Shaq and Kobe didn't win a championship until Phil Jackson got there, right? So what's, was it the player, the coach, like?
I think it's a combination.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens for every organization. You're going to be a championship organization. You need to have everybody on board and everybody doing their best. And in sports, there's only one champion every year.
Yeah.
But in business, whatever work you're doing, everybody can be a champion, behave like it. And what's always interesting is you will get treated like one if you act like one.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to the individual. All the individuals are healthy and doing well, feel valued, then they start performing like champions and acting like it, and then all the team is being treated.
So it sounds like you spend a lot of time investing time in people, but how do you balance that with like only 24 hours in a day, right? Because you're married, and I don't know, you have kids or grandkids, you have social life, you do horse race stuff. Like, how do you balance the time? Because you invest in someone, you just can't say hi once a day. Like, you got to invest some time, right?
Yeah.
So how do you balance that?
Well, and I think you also have to take care of yourself.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
There's that. There is that.
On top of everything, all those other things. Yes. To me, it's about me. It starts with me taking the time to be grateful, to take care of myself mentally, physically, and emotionally, so that I can give energy. I think that is what, and there are a lot of people out there do that really well. And you can't give what you don't have. So you've got to make sure you have that. And I have pushed that limit multiple times because I am passionate about helping people, caring about helping them succeed. I think you need to understand where your boundaries are and be very clear with those with everyone else. When I'm going to have time to myself, I'm going to have that. Just make sure I can do that. Thankfully, my family is really good at understanding. And so I think the boundaries, taking care of yourself, and then knowing and teaching other people to do it. So the people that I'm helping, if I teach them to have some time to themselves and take care of themselves, then they need me in smaller doses, or they need their leader or their support system in smaller doses. So I think that's a big part.
So next, chief culture officer, is that something every company should have, or should that be something that HR takes care of, or something the CEO should take care of themselves?
I think it's a little bit of, I think that's leaders should be doing those things. I mean, it's nice to have someone who's got those main responsibilities, but I think that's one of the things I talk about in an organization. Everyone's responsible for its success. Everyone. And of course, that starts modeling it from the leadership and someone doing that job does help. But small organizations, you can't have that.
Yeah. So how do you define a healthy work environment?
I think number one is people talk about morale and they talk about how, although a lot of people can't find it when I ask them what's that, I think a healthy organization has individuals who are feel valued and are healthy. It has a environment of teamwork that everyone knows what their role is, and not only knows what it fulfills it, and is celebrated for that, what that role. We were just using the basketball as an example. Well, on the Lakers and the Bulls, there were players who were not great anymore, or at the end of their career, played a specific role. I remember on the Bulls, Bill Cartwright, big guy who had a great career.
Yeah, he played for the Knicks,
Yeah,
came to the Bulls later on.
And so at the end of his career, he came in and he was a 7 foot, took up space, played defense, rebounded, but didn't play all game. Came in spurts, could score, and everything, and he knew what his role was. And he played that role for 12 minutes a game, every game, and the best he could. And they celebrated. And I think that's why they could win championships. When he didn't fulfill his role, they couldn't succeed as much. They were going to say, "Hey, you need to do that." So I think that's really what a successful team does. They also handle problems. They handle problems in a productive way. They handle them fast. So if there's a conflict between two teammates, they don't need the supervisor or the lead to get involved. They don't right away. They don't need a teammate to get involved. They handle it. If they can't handle it, they have created an internal process where they can go to the next level. Hey, we're not going to work this out. Let's go help. Go to our teammate. Let's go to the supervisor. And healthy teams do that. Solve problems fast so they don't get in the way of what they're trying to do. And they understand healthy teams also understand that their mission. I talk a lot about having organizational purpose and an individual's purpose aligned. And that's what happens in healthy organizations. It can and it does. And it's important that everyone makes sure because there's a lot of jobs that are easy to understand as a doctor, right? I'm a surgeon. If I do, these people are going to have a better life or survive if I do the surgery. That's not always as easy and clear in every business, but it's there. That sense of purpose and sense of what success is. I think that's the other part. You need to know what success really is. What does it mean? What is it? And they also celebrate when they win the game. And they know what win means. Finding winning abilities. I think that's the gist of it.
Okay. So you might or might not remember this. So one time, Michael Jordan scored 62 points and they won the game, right? There's a player on the Bulls named Stacey King. He's an All-American, Oklahoma University. Did have a good pro career. After the game, a reporter asked Stacey King, like, "Can you tell us about the game?" And he answered, "I remember this game as a night me and Michael Jordan scored 64 points to win the game." Now, at first you might think about what this guy talking about, right? But I think his mind was like, even though I scored 2 points, that was a factor in us winning the game, right? And so I was disappointed as Michael Jordan is winning this game.
Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think when you know that in an organization, no matter what you're doing, that you played your game, you fulfilled your role to the best of your ability, and you did it well. And it doesn't matter whether you're the star or not. You help the team win.
I know when answer, I think people were like, especially reporters, like, "Are you kidding me, guy?"
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Yeah, but I think that's true. I mean, I've watched it in workplaces where there was a role that wasn't being fulfilled, the team wasn't able to be successful, and sometimes it's a minor role. It's just a minor thing that isn't getting done, and then they see the role, they fill it, and all of a sudden there's a success in the team because and the stars, superstars are still out there doing their magic, um, whoever that is, but they realize, hey, I just fulfilled my role the best way I could. And I think that goes back to people understanding that you're probably winning more than you think you are.
Yeah.
You look at it.
So do you think employees, when they don't perform well, they don't perform well because it's just like they don't know how to perform well, or it's because there's like outside things, or is the employer keep them from performing well?
I think it can be all of the above, but I think you usually start with the employee themselves, and you want to look at the culture. What's the culture? Is the culture allowing you to succeed? Is there something getting? I said earlier about caring. Well, I'm going to ask. You got to be careful nowadays about how personal you get, and they have to volunteer certain things, of course. But if they know I care, then they probably will. But if I see someone struggling, I'm going to ask them, so you're struggling. Tell me about, and a lot of times you get this relief. Struggle. Yeah, I have. So let's explore that. Let's talk about it. So you start there. Sometimes it ends up being as I'm struggling because I'm not a good fit. Hate this work. I'm not good at it. I don't want to do it. Sometimes it's as simple as my computer's not working, but I can't get anybody to fix it, so I just keep on going. Sometimes it's as simple as that. I think the key is to be curious about what it is, not just blame the employee. Oh, it's awful. Get you out of it. But why is this person struggling? Because there's always a reason.
One thing that kills me a lot of times, like, you have a manager and they say, hey, Jason's not doing well, he keeps on messing up. Like, well, have you told Jason he's messing up? He knows he's messing up. Are you sure? You just said Jason messed up 10 times in a row. So you're saying Jason's perfectly messed up 10 times in a row?
Yeah.
Can you just go ask,
Yeah.
but a lot of managers, oh, he's messing up purpose.
Yeah, I think assuming that someone's
So like, has Jason been trained up, has been told to do it correctly?
usually not. But even if you have, again, sometimes it's everyone has different, is Jason a new employee? Is Jason not? Has he been here for 10 years? Is because almost there is an occasion when it's done.
Yeah.
And usually that is a cry for attention, and that's a different story. But when people, I believe everyone wants to do their best. They want to be successful. So you have to be curious as to why are you not being successful. Now, sometimes they don't. They're very, they just don't see it. They think they're doing really well because no one's told.
Yeah.
And so if you build it up and you let it build up 10 times, a manager has to tell a supervisor to do that. And the supervisor goes and now they're mad. Now they express it in a negative way. That can actually be detrimental to the whole situation. I think that's understanding your person that you're dealing with. Because if someone thinks going along and they think they're doing good, and then all of a sudden,
Especially like they've been doing, like, we'll say a year, and then they get yelled at for doing the job bad. Like, I've been doing this for a year.
that's right.
No one said anything, Matter of fact, I've doing this for a year. I've got a promotion and a raise the last year.
Right.
Now you telling me I'm doing it wrong in front of everyone? Like, what type of mess is this?
Yeah, and I think that happens, and I think that's because leaders aren't always taught to have that conversation. They think it's going to be painful. Usually it isn't, especially if you do it at the beginning. You see there's a problem, go fix it right away. Like I said, healthy teams do that. Healthy leaders. Let's go fix that so it doesn't build up. Get mad about it. Things don't work or something big failure. So, yeah, I think the leaders, as a leader, you need to have that conversation.
I remember reading this somewhere, but I think it said like The most untrained person in any company is a first time supervisor
Yeah,
because no one teaches you how to supervise.
they don't, and 60% of supervisors who were hired this year will fail, um, and most of it's because of lack of training and lack of direction. And a lot of times, people are promoted because they're really good at technical.
What's that? What's it called? The Peter Principle, I
Yes,
think.
yes. And so you're promoted because you're really good at it, but that doesn't mean you're really good at supervising.
Yeah. And if you get promoted, you probably had like 10 peers you used to hang out with. Now you're the boss. That's another dynamic you got to
Yeah.
deal with.
And people don't always think about the money and the prestige first, not the real nuts and bolts of how this is really going to work. And that's very difficult to be promoted within your work. And you may have competed against people who,
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now
Kind of jealous or hateful or
yeah,
hate or
or
whatever.
just disappointed.
Yeah.
But if you handle that wrong, now they are going to be hated.
Yeah.
And so and then you're a first time supervisor that no one thought about that dynamic.
Yeah. If too many companies say you figure it out right.
And I always find that interesting because the first time supervisor on the front line, being a frontline supervisor, you're impacting the company's bottom line more than any
Yeah.
leader in the organization.
Yeah.
And then you're going to just say, just figure it out.
Yeah.
No, no, you should have classes. You should teach them how to do it. You should teach them the dynamics of what it is to care about people and how to have tough conversations and how to pay attention because you're not a technical person anymore. So stop doing the technical work. Start doing the leadership work, which is paying attention to your people, knowing what their triggers are, knowing who they are, understanding who might substance abuse problems, who's having challenges in private life. You don't have to know all the details, but you do need to know that it's going on, so you can help. And then these multi-billion-dollar companies, you throw that right in. Wow, how do you make money?
Yeah. Can you talk some about some of the webinars, the online courses you do?
Yeah, I do. I do a number of them, but prefer to do them in person because when you're teaching leaders, you want to get them to feel and teach them to interact and deal with those difficult things. But I do a leadership. First, I do a change management that I can do both in person, and that's kind of if you're dealing with a change issue that you're struggling with. I have a process to help work you through that as a unit, as a team. Sometimes it's the leadership team, sometimes it's a frontline team. I have a course for leaders that is a 90-day course where we meet 3 times and the rest is done via video. And it's for those frontline first time supervisors or newer managers who are just starting to learn what's going on and to help them go through the process. And the first session is always about them, right? Learn about yourself first. I also do a chartering workshop, which is values and purpose and mission and vision for a team. And that's always done in person, but that's always underestimated in how powerful that can be. Let's see what else. We're working on a number of first-time employee trainings. We're working with a partner. We're not ready for those yet, but they'll be generally online. Where we've noticed that the new employees, you're coming out of college, you're coming out of high school, you really aren't taught how to work and be in a workspace. So we want them to be successful. So we're creating a program to teach them how do you navigate finance, make sure how do you navigate benefits in HR, how do you communicate those sort of basics that we were taught differently, kind of learned. My first wasn't really a formal job, but I worked for a farmer, throwing hay, and you learned exactly.
That's the right way to throw hay, right?
That's right. And he taught you, and you better do it that way. But and I think that, but we got to learn the dynamics of the workplace. Working with people. It doesn't happen today for a lot of us. It's not the young generation's fault. That's ours. And we teach them.
Yeah, that kills me too. Like, people, we always complain about, the participation trophy generation, right? But who gave them the trophies? Like we did, right?
That's right.
But we complain but we did. Like, that's how we raised them, and we're complaining about it.
Yeah, and I think that that's true. And I noticed that trend about 8 or 10 years ago. They talked about the millennials, and the millennials and the Gen Z are going to are changing the way we do business now because of who they are, and that's a good thing, not a negative. But there were those basic things they didn't know, and when they came in, they were getting beat up because they didn't know them. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've told all the organizations I've gone in since is stop complaining about it, start fixing and teaching, knowing that when you bring a new employee in, that is of a certain age that hasn't worked a lot, you're going to have to teach them the basics. John Wooden was a great one at UCLA, where freshmen, he started freshmen by teaching them how to put their uniform.
I remember that. How to tie your shoes.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
reading
And
about that.
so, and he was pretty successful at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why as a successful organization, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you teach them how to come? Hey, this is how we get ready for work every day. This is what we do. This is take our breaks. This is where we do that. But we don't do that. We assume they know everything, and that they know what we know, and then we throw them to the wolves and say, give them a week's training. The great thing is technology, they don't have a problem. They'll pick that up in 10 seconds. But that doesn't mean they're going to pick up the social vibe of culture. Just not.
How do you recommend companies do this? Like, suppose a company has like all generations of workplace, Boomer, Generation X, Millennial, Gen Z, Gen whatever coming next. How do you recommend they utilize them to the best abilities to make the workplace the best place it can be?
First thing I think you want to do is help them understand generationally what the difference is. So, as part of almost all of those classes I named and many others, we do have some exercise about generation, because they all are different. There's a couple of good books out there about it. Some of them are dated because they don't have Gen Z in it, but I think it's important to understand what the differences are and also the similarities, and to forget that there are a lot of similarities. Gen Z has some similarities to the boomers a little. There's a few things they're doing that are very similar to them. So it's I think it's understanding that. I had an example of a number of years ago. We had a boomer, and it was a very beginning of, but he was one of the first millennials. And the millennial asked, he said, can I work a different shift? Right? Work the same. I could come in late and work late. Works better. Okay. So the boomer comes to me and complains. What are you letting him do that for? You can't do that. And I said, you can do that too. He said, no, I can. He goes, well, I don't want to come in late. I want to come in earlier. Makes my commute better. Do it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's always the misunderstanding. Well, they want to do it. They ask. That means I can't. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You just have, and you may do it differently because, again, as a boomer, he was taught, I get up very early. I get into my day very early. I go to bed early. That's what he did. So I had one coming in at 9, who we were coming in at 7. He liked 9. I had one coming in at 5:30. Didn't affect the team. They both knew that if there was a meeting that they need to come in early or stay late for, they had to. They did that.
I think millennials do a good job, like asking, right? Like, can I do this? Can I do that?
Yeah, they do. I think sometimes they tell.
Yeah.
But I think they're very good at expressing what they need, and that's an important thing.
Yeah.
especially for a leader who wants to make sure everything is going to be productive. You may not get it exactly the way you want it, but if I understand what you need, I can come up with a solution that works.
So, who is your perfect customer?
Perfect. Um, it's going to sound weird, but a organization who is ready to change, who's desperate for change, that is very toxic and struggling to survive. That's
And how do you find them, or do they find you?
a little of both. We've got ourselves out there. Of course, we have the website akramoff.com, which anybody can jump on. We do post a lot on LinkedIn, just on general subjects of the things we've been talking about today. But I find them by word of mouth most of the time, or they've gotten so desperate. Someone says, "Hey, you ought to. I saw this website, or saw this person on LinkedIn, or we've worked with him before. You might want to talk to him." That's where we get most of it.
And your customers tend to be from a certain industry, certain revenue stream, or any certain similarities to your customers?
Not revenue stream for sure. I've had some that are damn near broke, and some that are very very lucrative businesses. Um, I come from local government. In local government around King County the last until I became a consultant for about 20 years, and in local government for 25. So that's where we start, and we branched out into private. I have one other consultant now who does this work with me, and his expertise is in food and beverage. So we've done some work there, but the program we do resonates in any business, and we're working with some private businesses.
So, talk about this. I saw this meme a while ago, right, where this guy was talking to a bunch of employees, right? He said, "This company needs change. We need it now." Everyone said, "Yes." Change is coming. Yes.
Yeah.
You all need to change. No.
Right.
So, can you talk about the dynamic of like people knowing the organization should change, but they themselves don't think they need to change?
Yeah, I think that's usually the case with change and accountability, right? Is it's all really great until you pointed at me. It's interesting though that if it's not, most of the time organizations have a group of things they need to change. So we look at, when I go into an organization, I look at five main factors, six of them. So I look at their culture. There's things that need to change there, and we look at that first. I look at the structure. Usually the structure is feeding a bad culture. Systems, processes, external forces, things that are pressuring your business from the outside. And then what you measure, how you measure success. So KPIs or analytics or however you decide. The when you when I look at those things, there's always areas that need to change. So if you take the personal piece of it out, right? The organization needs to change software systems that they can't. They know that. So that makes it so when you identify some things to change, you identify those. You also identify some small ones. One of the things I've done in a lot of organizations that I've started with is their cell phone stuff. So the first thing we do is show them the change process by changing their cell phones. So we model the entire process that we're going to use in whatever change. They get to see what it looks like. They get to see that they're going to be involved in choosing the new cell phones, talk about what's going on. So we model it. We also know that every person goes through change, and at a different time. I relate it to the morning, because it is a sense of loss. You're losing the old way, and you're gaining a new. And so some people will, everyone will be resistant, some sort of resistance. Some people, it's that quick and not resisting. Some people will resist till the very end. Helping identify those people through that process. The key to that whole thing is that you want to get everybody to celebrate change. And what they say when that happens is, I'm glad we did. This was a good change. It takes a while to get everybody there. And I have had people in a change process be almost there and go right back to resistance. and rather than fight, we don't want it when we change. We don't want to fight that. We want to find out why. What's caused you all of a sudden when you were an implementer and you were loving everything that was happening, all of a sudden now we're almost done and you don't want to do it. Tell us. And I think that's the mistake that's made in a lot of change processes, is that we go, well, one person doesn't matter in this change process necessarily, and we're going to do it and they can't stop it, so let's just roll on. That little pill of someone being treated that way grows back, and then that will poison the well, and your change won't function. So when you get everybody to that celebration, then you know the change is successful. Any implementation of that has to go entirely through. You cannot make a management change and change the way you're doing things and tell them what they're going to do and not have them part of the process. And then the frontline employees, I mean, that's what I ask. I'll go in, well, we did a change process 2 years ago and we think it was very successful. Okay, can I ask the receptionist and the janitor? What will they tell me? And if will they be able to say the same thing that your manager does? If they tell me yes, and I go test it, then that was a success. They say, well, wait, we can't, you can't. Then it wasn't a success because the change didn't get implemented on the line, which in the end doesn't impact your customer.
How you deal with this? Like a company hires on to do change management process for them, and the CEO, the leadership, they say this for change, they say all the right things, but you can tell from the body language that the employee is going to know from the body language that they're not really all on the change, just doing a check the block, so to speak. How do you work through that?
Well, one of the things we've done is we have a pretty good process to help them understand. So we do the assessment. And the assessment tells us whether. I have told clients, no, you're not committed and you're not ready for the change, or if you want to do it yourself, go ahead. But that's fine with us at your company. But understand, if you're not committed, the employees won't know.
No, yeah, they'll know within seconds. Yeah.
And when they know that, nothing.
Yeah.
And so, and in a lot of companies, they're the ones, the line employees know what needs to change. When they see the assessment or they hear about it, they know that what we do is, and what we're recommending is a good thing. They want to do it, and their biggest fear is that the leadership won't do it, and the leadership will just keep doing what they're doing. So we will tell them no, they're not ready, and test their commitment. But if we're in it, right? If now we're in it and now they're showing resistance, and they will. Yeah, resistance happens at every level. We're going to work our way through it, and we're going to continue to spell out the positives of changing and the negatives of not. And certainly the negative of the catastrophe. That's what we tell them at the beginning. Once we start down this process, you cannot stop. You can fire us. You can send us packing, but you ain't stopping. Because the people are going to be empowered, and they're going to know, hey, this is what needs to happen. They're either going to make it happen, or they're going to rebel. And that rebellion comes up in two things. Either they leave, or they say, no, we're doing it this way. And it's not that we want that intention. It's not our goal is to make sure that everyone's successful. But we want to make sure the leaders know when we come in, that's what. And they start to see that, start to see the energy. And then we talk about how their job is. It's not just about the frontline employees being successful. It's about the leaders. Do you realize that if, rather than working 65 hours a week, you can work 45?
And probably double your output.
Yeah, and double your output, and your people are going to produce more. And you're going to be much happier. So is your family. The rest of your life is going to be better, and your stress level is going to be. And then we prove it. And that's really what it is. We prove what we say. Once you get them going and they realize that, they'll resist again. And we remind them, hey, remember what happened here. This is going to happen here. They move on. So it's a very dynamic and individual process. We pay attention to all.
How about this situation? Like, suppose, for lack of a better term, there's a mom and pop company out there, right? But they've gone to be like a multi-million dollar, even billion dollar company. They still run things like the mom and pop, right? Traditional things, still the old school ways. And they're like, you know what? We got to modernize, right? So they want to modernize, but they keep on going back to old school ways. That's what they know, right? Like they're like 50 old way, 50 new. To me, they can do either one or the other, right? How do you like work through them? Okay, you made the decision to be like modernize, right? This is how you're gonna modernize. You got to keep going back to old traditional ways. But they'll be like, well, we go back to old traditional ways because that's what got us to this point, right? So how do you like work through that?
Well, I think that's part of the thing is that what got you, that's the hardest part about all of it is what got you here is not necessarily going to get you to. And so you have to we work them through making the conscious decision. So now, like you said, they've made the decision to modernize and to move forward and scale up, all those things. We prepare them for the process of letting go. You're going to have to let go of the old ways. And you're going to have to go through that mourning resistance process that we're talking about. And so preparing them in advance is very important, but also identifying when the resistance comes up, not waiting to talk to them, hey, it's Friday and it's 4:00 and resistance pops up. Let's talk about it Monday. No, you take the time to talk about it right now. It's kind of that go slow to go fast thing. Jump in, you take care of it. And then on Monday, you got them back ready and back where like I said, it's very, especially for a mom and pop, a owner, a founder business, which I am. It's very personal, and you have to learn to let go. And I found this, right? I'm already having a challenge where my example is I created a file system that works beautifully.
For you.
Yeah. And it makes sense to the people I explain it to, but they don't do it the same. And so sometimes that's frustrating to me because I can't find things like I'm used to because it's just me. But in order to scale, in order for our company to grow, I got to let go. We've got to find a new way, make sure that I get what I need while the rest of the employees are getting what they need. And I think, and that's true of the business. So how does the business get what it needs to feed it while it's growing, and all of us kind of grow with it? And I think that's the big key is that with the mom and pop, they're going to go back to that because they're comfortable with it. Let's find a way to make them comfortable with the new way. What is a way they can connect with that new way? Because it doesn't have to be a certain way. It just needs to, the old way is not going to work. It needs to.
For your pricing, how do you come up with your price? With just matter of trial and error? You let the market decide? Like, can you talk about how you came up with your pricing and the process for that?
Yeah, I base a lot of it on the hours it's going to. So there's two different ways I do business. One, I'm a consultant, and that's kind of how. The other is I'm an embedded leader. So you bring me in to take over a part of your business, fix it, and then I help you hire a new person. So I have two different pricing models. The pricing model on the interim is I charge weekly based on what roughly the salary of the position, the whole package, plus a little bit. But I have three factors there. How much work is it? Am I going to work 45 hours a week or am I going to work 70? I'm willing to do both, but pay is going to be related. What's the stress level? Because when I toxic work environment, stress level is high. And if it's super high, then we're going to charge you more personal impact. And then the length of time. So those are the three factors. When I'm a consultant, I look at the hours it's going to take. So I know what it takes us to do an assessment based on the number of employees. Big organization. So we put the assessment together, and then we put another scope of work together for the second phase, which is implementation. We will help you with implementation anyway you want us to, but we will price it accordingly based on our needs. So if I'm gonna be the one that goes into the organization and does this, then pricing. So if we're all gonna go in, then it's different pricing. One of the things we found is I let the market decide for a while. I wanted at the beginning, we were proving our concepts and all that. I wanted to be fair. And what I realized is people, if I didn't charge them enough, they wouldn't continue to be committed to the process. So we want to make sure that there is a pain point of some sort, that it means something to their company that they've got us in. We're going to over deliver. But we know that if it doesn't mean anything, it's the whole free thing.
Yeah.
Free, you don't value.
Yeah.
And I think that we found that to be very true.
What's the Akramoff method?
Akramoff method. Well, I think it's the I mentioned what we call the 6 pillars of a healthy organization, which is culture, structure, process, systems, external forces, and analytics. Those are the pillars. That's the base of the healthy organization. And then we go through, so you have to identify what's going on with all of those, make all of those right. So as an example, the culture, I talked about a workshop of chartering, mission, vision, values, all those things. And healing. That's the other part we forget. Is toxic organizations need to heal. So we get the culture right, we get the structure right. On the structure, a lot of times structure in an organization, you're talking about the mom and pop road. They build from making 20,000 a month to 2 million a month in revenue. They have all this staff and they just fill in spots that they need, and it's done very organically. So looking at a structure and making it fit what the organization actually needs actually impacts the operation quite considerably. So we make recommendations to fix that. Almost always, the organization has one or two problems. It's either way too flat, so it has one leader and not enough interaction, which is the mom and pop does that usually, or it has too many layers. The leader of the organization can't interact, understand. So we create a structure that fixes those things. I think systems, people always think that your systems work well, but I have found so funny that people have workarounds. I'll bet in your setting up here, you have a few workarounds to get through things. And so when you have someone like us look at that, and you go, why? Because they have to, like the way it works. But if you upgrade something, do some changes, make yourself more efficient. Processes, that's the way you do your work, and steps you take to do your work. And a lot of times those aren't especially train people, they don't train the same, everybody does it different, customer experiences. And then external forces, which is always an interest to me, is there are things that impact your business that you can't right now. A lot of people's. So having a strategy that you can implement and identify it while it's, because a lot of times you get fuel prices are crazy. You're a trucking company, fuel prices crush you. And if you're not ready to make an adjustment, customers bill somehow for that, then you're going to lose money. Profitability, losing money, maybe not. So you need to have a strategy to do that. So, and again, it's nothing to do with, you can't control that. That's that fuel price. You just have to deal with it. You have to have a strategy to do that. And then analytics, people count everything. And usually there's only 3 or 4 things that to really tell you whether you're being successful. So to help you identify those and set up a program for you to measure those on a regular basis. I mean, it's one of my favorite sports is baseball. And some of those things matter. Some of them don't. And that's the business. Spend it, and so many people spend more time counting than they do doing. And so we try to fix that. So putting all those things together, humanizing with all of those factors is really the
And your background is in public sector government work. So what influenced you to leave that career to become an entrepreneur?
the biggest one was that I wanted to impact. I like my, I enjoyed serving people, but I had a 25-year career. It's time to do something different, but I really realized I could change a team and an organization's dynamic really quickly. And that's what I love. And I didn't, I use the analogy, I can install the grass in the lawn, but I hate to mow it. And that's what I came to, is we'd make the change, and then I'd start mowing the lawn for 2 years, and I got bored. I didn't like it. So I've created I knew as an entrepreneur, I could create that environment. I could see that in the workplaces I was in, that the work was in. And then, so then I started working with another doing the work. I got invited, a client actually invited me in, and they said, "Hey, your name keeps coming up. Can you help us do this?" Yes. So I went and talked to another consultant firm, a small one, and the owner, Linda, said, "We'll talk for 10 minutes. I just want to find out, how do I do it? How do I set up my business and everything?" And she said, "Why don't you join us?" For one. So I did, and she taught me a lot about how to do this. And I realized I like doing it. I can do it. And then I set up a business plan, and started a business on my own. Once I did that, that's a lot of work. Don't ever want to underestimate anyone who's an entrepreneur or wants to be. It's a lot of work. There are a lot of details to go through. But once I got into it, I mean, they talk about the freedom. It's truly not true.
Yes, that's more of a myth.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I can get up at 9 o'clock on any given day. But also I have to work 16-hour days some days, many in a row. And so that's what got me into it. And then once I started, and we were talking before we started about trying to get partners to help you do the things you don't like to do or you're not good at. And I've been lucky in many ways. I've had a number of really good partners who do things. A great team, support team. And so I don't know. I will always have some entrepreneurial business going. And you're always looking for another opportunity, right? How do I make it grow? What do I do? And so it's always dynamic.
Can you talk about some of the mistakes you've made?
First one I've talked about a couple of times is, as an entrepreneur, I think we're risk takers, and I am. And I took a couple of risks that I would say weren't calculated. I got a little ahead of myself as a team. We got a little ahead of ourselves. And the example is that we had a workshop, one of the workshops I was talking about, and we actually scheduled it without having anybody to come. We had to build it and they will come thing, and then they didn't come. And so we had made an investment. And I realized, hey, you got to let the market tell you whether they're ready for it. And then you make the commitment. I did it too early. So that was costly, cost us a little bit of money, cost us more, a little bit of ego being bruised, um, but it was a good lesson about there's time to take a risk and time not to, and to make sure your product is jump in. We were talking earlier about social media and marketing, two areas that have been really challenging for us to partners. Found a really good partner to start off with social media businesses, and especially small shops and that stuff. That's what she did. Very good, and a really good partnership. She needed to do something different. And so since then, trying to find the right one, I've taken some risks where I spent a little money and maybe shouldn't have. So, and then social media in general. I'm not sure for our business that at the level we've been doing it, it's the right thing. We're reconsidering. And I think that's the other part, is to constantly, at the beginning, I didn't reevaluate anything. I got a bank, I got all this stuff, and I didn't evaluate fees. I didn't do any of that. So I'm losing money on some things that I can't. And so after I had expanded my company, it wasn't just me. I had some resources to be able to look at. I think that's the other mistake. I didn't evaluate the business on a month-to-month basis. Just let it roll. It was busy. I think that's important to do. You have to know, hey, is this bank doing me right? Is this partner, am I getting the value that I'm paying them to do the work for, social media, marketing, whatever? And then the other part, I think, is that I underestimate my skills, in that I love doing my business part. I not just running my business, I like doing the work. So sometimes I underestimated the way that showed up is in marketing. I had a bunch of people trying to get me to buy their marketing stuff. And so I kept asking, well, what I need is a plan, and I can decide. And no one would deliver me a plan. So what I realized, okay, well, I can't find anybody to do it. They're telling me no, so I'll do it myself. So I did a bunch of research. I dug in, just like you do when you start a business, and I realized, okay, this is what I need. And that's actually what brought me here today. One of the things I identified is that this is a better venue for having a conversation with somebody is where I can be successful. So we identified podcasting we should be doing as a marketing tool. And really, because we're more than just a business, we want this to be a movement. You can change your workplace without do it. If you can use my stuff to change your workplace, please do it. Whatever you want, however you want to do that. Because we can't get to them all, and everybody deserves it. But when I'm doing the marketing, I realize, let's just figure it out ourselves. So we put together a strategy and we're implementing it. We're moving in the right direction.
Are all your customers in Seattle?
No. I've had them all around King County, of course. I've had a client in Bellingham, one in Cushman. We've done other side of the mountains. We've applied for and been part of processes in Portland.
How do you determine it's time to part ways with customers? Like, is that just based on time? They met change management has been successful? Like how do y'all determine like it's time to part ways?
The the uh, the assessment process creates a roadmap to what it also creates a roadmap of what they're going to do after. But we are very specific about what we're going to do. The things that we know they can't do because they're busy and they got jobs to do. So we get those things done. We do the facilitate the workshops and those sort of, and then we get the change momentum rolling. And there's always a predetermined place where we start next. The way that I describe it is we come in and we grab onto your business, and it depending on how, if you let us do it, we'll grab on as hard as we possibly can, figure it out, get it going in the right direction, and then we'll let loose as fast as we can. And then if I'm embedded, or any of us are embedded, then we create a work plan for our replacement of 6 months, so that they can come in, settle in, fall into the change process, and then have time to decide what their direction is, so they can take the organization they know needs to go eventually. So,
How about this? Suppose someone brings you on to do change management. You're doing change management, and then they say, "Hey, we also want you to do leadership coaching." Is that just a upgrade that you charge extra
yeah,
for, or is that
yeah,
okay?
yeah. A lot of times it's part of the original scope because we identify it. But yeah, we've had that happen. Or we'll let that on, depending on hours and what they want us to do. I mean, we've had add-ons for a workshop, had add-ons for different work, um, coaching for sure. A, a, a major issue that showed up, a customer issue where we needed to do a process adjustment, and wanted us to concentrate on that. So yeah,
So what if a client says, "Can you do this for me? Take a few minutes. It only take a day." Like how do you like? Because of course, any amount of time is money. So how do you deal with that?
yeah. I think the the key thing is that there's things that are within the scope and things that aren't. So our scope of works are written very specifically. So it's very easy to be clear about what's not in. And when it's not, that's the advantage of actually having us embedded, is that if we're part of your team, um, most of that'll get done as part of
Yeah.
the price. So you don't have to add. If we're a consultant and we got to add hours, then we're going to look at it and we'll evaluate it. We're very good at bound. So if we say, well, okay, that is a request that you say will take this. This is what we see. Um, we would we will charge you according. Or at times I've said, well, keep track of the hours. We'll talk about it later. Depends on the client, what our relationship is. But most of them are pretty good, so we usually do it that way. Because I'm also well aware of what the budget is as part of the assessment.
And do you do any government work?
Government work, yeah,
Okay.
do a lot of.
Does that mean like county government, city
Yeah,
governments? Okay.
cities are. I've spent most of my time in cities. Let's say,
Okay. You said yes, you and one more person on your team.
yeah. Well, I have two actually. I have one who does what I do. Josh is actually my son too.
Okay.
And he does. He's the one who does. He does. Calls it legacy coaching, which and consulting, which it is. He likes to take on the small founder businesses and help them scale. Very good at it, and he uses the methods that I do, and in the food and beverage business. And then we have one other, Chris Lynch, who is a financial, particularly in government, but he's a financial guru. He's fabulous. And so he does grants, he focuses in public works, funding mechanisms and that sort of thing. And he has some really nice programs. And he also goes in as in an interim, kind of an interim fashion. There's a lot of finance things that are happening. I'll tell you right now, finance people are hard to find, and he's fantastic. So he's been with us about a year now.
So What's something like when you started as an entrepreneur, like you really struggled with, right? Like you got a hard time figuring it out, but now you're like, why did I have such a hard time? That's the easiest thing ever. I must have been like, what? Why?
To me, it was the whole startup process. I I I couldn't believe, like, I looked at it. Okay, I got all these things, and I created a business plan, and then I created the checklist, and I created another checklist, and I just looked at it, and I didn't start the business. I actually planned to start at a certain date, changed, and I did that because I didn't. And then I talked to somebody about it, and they said, because I thought one of the reasons, funny, this is kind of funny. I thought, boy, these government processes, they're killing me. um, and 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 I look at them because there's a lot. You got business, you got payroll, all those things.
Yeah.
And I set it all up so I could expand into payroll whenever I was ready. So I did all that work, which turns out to be a really good thing. But I thought, how is this so hard? How does anybody start a business? And then you look back, because we've talked about starting another business, and partner with someone else and starting it, and we're like, oh, you just do this, and this is done. So it is not, it is intimidating because it is a lot of work. But if you just do a little bit every day, it's okay. And then once you do it once,
It's muscle memory, yeah.
it is. And to me, I look back and go, why didn't I start it years ago?
So, from your point of view, what's some reasons businesses fail nowadays?
Um, I would say we were talking about it earlier. One is you get stuck in your ways of doing it. I want to do it this way, and this is the only way, and that's not true. And um, and again, I've struggled there. I also think that people want to do too much themselves. You I believe if you do 70% of your workday doing what you love, you have a camper. So if I start to go below that, I commit to ask for help. And that help can look very different and can change over time. But um, I have an executive assistant. We tried did an admin first. That first one didn't work out for a lot of reasons. So we went to executive assistant. It's working great. Similar job description. There's some differences. And then what I realized, I was still doing it. Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
And so I have, as the owner, as leader of the business, you got to learn to let go, constantly letting go.
Why should someone not be an entrepreneur?
That's hard for me to say because I love being one. I would say if you like stability, if that's an important factor for you, then don't do it. I would also say that I think you do need to take some risks. So if you're risk averse, it's going to be very painful for you. And I think, like we said, I wonder why I didn't do it years ago, but I wasn't ready to. I think you want to make sure you're ready to make the commitment because there's no back.
Yeah.
And especially when you start, there's no one else. So you need to do payroll, and you've worked. Payroll's due tomorrow, and you got to get it in the morning, and you just got home from two clients over the day, and it's 9 p.m.
And you're tired and you're hungry.
You eat, and then you stay up until you get payroll, and there is no back. Now, as you grow, that can change, but when you start, there isn't. You need to understand that that's what it is, and that you don't get to do what you love. The reason you started the business, you don't get to do your why every day or every minute, because the business is a living, breathing thing that needs you.
So you started a company. Were you still working for the government, or you did a clean break?
Um, I actually did a clean break.
Okay.
I worked for that other company. I ended my government. I was working as a consultant with this other company, so it was much easier. And then I started it. I picked a date. I ended a contract that I had with them. So I had one client to finish up. I finished that up in September, actually in the beginning of October, and then started my business in November. So it was a clean break.
And have you taken out any loans or anything? It's all been bootstrapped.
We bootstrapped it for the first 3 years. And then I took out a small business association loan recently that helped us do some upgrades to kind of get through our risk taking that didn't work out and give us some cash.
So you got loans with the SBA?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that some? Because everyone I know always says it's the process too hard. They loan money to no one. Can you talk about how you were successful in obtaining an SBA loan?
Yeah, I didn't find it that way, but we got found a partner bank who or a partner that did the process for us.
Okay.
And I recommend. And they were great. What they did is we found them on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And we talked to them and we did a kind of an intake.
Now, when you had the loan, you already had like revenue coming in, right?
Yeah, we had.
Okay.
Revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. This was this year.
Okay.
We just got it this year. So we're almost a year. So that helps.
Yeah.
I think is that you have some revenue.
Yeah, I think most people talking about it. They had like either low or little revenue.
Yeah. So when we took a small loan, QuickBooks, that we paid off really fast. Terms weren't awesome, but it was a little bit of money to get us through and have that cash flow. But it really helped that was there a lot of work to do, even with someone helping you? Yes. But I recommend getting a support team. And this group was fabulous. They did all the work, and I took the loan out, and I paid them. Took a loan out just for a little under $100,000. They charged me $2,800 for the loan.
Okay.
It was really good value, considering I didn't have to.
Yeah. Now, did the bank guarantee to get the loan?
Did they guarantee we would get it?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. They have a good strike,
Okay.
but no, they partnered us with a bank. That was the other part they did. Wasn't might have been a bank. They partnered us with SBA bank.
Okay.
That helped us, that finalized and gave us the loan and all that. And my most uncomfortable part was sharing all my personal information as part of the business, but it's part of the process.
Yeah.
I think the key to that was asking for the right amount.
How do you determine that?
We worked with our partner, but we also looked about what do we need? Did we want to take on more? Yeah, but we looked at what is the impact of our payment? Because the payments, the SBA terms are great. If you get a loan, we're paying a small amount. It's over a 10-year period, so it really makes it manageable. So we looked at all those factors. This is what we need. If we get more, it's going to put us in a leverage position. And so, and they told us, the bank also told us, hey, this is the amount give you. We took less.
Yeah.
But I think that helps. If the bank and everything, says 150 and you only need 100, take 100 and it's positive.
And for the loan, you have to, I guess you had to tell the bank what the money's going to be used for.
In general, there are certain things
Okay.
that could be used for.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's mostly business operations. Which made it easy.
Yeah.
We wanted to,
Yeah.
but we couldn't have bought a building.
Okay. So one thing I think a lot of entrepreneurs get wrong is like I think if you have a company, you gotta be almost like a public persona, but you gotta put yourself out in the public, right? You gotta be on social media, you gotta be on LinkedIn, people have to know who you are. How do you approach like building in public, like letting people know who you are so you can build your business?
Well, I think that's that's been the challenge, right? Is I had a lot of word of mouth, people who worked with us. So I do think we have a good website that helps. That was something that I committed to at the beginning. But I was talking earlier about my marketing point. I realized we weren't getting what we needed from social media. Social media, and we were trying to figure out the matrix that is social media. And we realized, okay, it's better if our customers are talking about us. And yes, there's some things we want to put out. I have thoughts and I do some writing. But again, we thought about, okay, what is our skill set? What is my skill set? What is Josh's skill set? What is Chris's skill set? How do we get those out? So we dabbled in advertising to our client.
When you say advertise, you mean like paid ads on Facebook and Instagram? You mean like a traditional one?
I did a traditional one because in local government in particular, they are active, but they're more active in their treatment.
Okay.
So we advertise there. We're going to our second trade show.
What's that going to be at?
It's in Wenatchee. It's
Okay.
the APWA, American Public Works Association,
Okay.
Washington chapter. So those are the people we work with. I do, Chris does. Some of them work directly with some of the clients that Josh has. So we know that's a good investment for us to go to. So that's we look again podcasting. I realize there's an opportunity for me to share our program and share how we do business and help people understand that they're not alone. They can get out there and get help. We're here to help. We also will take their help, in their business. So there's that part. And we also realize that engaging with people is really part of our business. And it's one of the reasons that we're successful. So we've set up everything to engage with people individually and groups. So I do speaking engagements as well. Got a couple of those in October. Podcast. That's just a way to get out there and get people to know who we are as people.
Can you talk about how you got your first customer, like the process of finding your first customer?
Yeah, mine was weird. I actually first customer as a consultant was, I think I described earlier a little bit, is that someone called me and said, "We need this work, and your name keeps coming up." I wasn't a consultant, so then I went to the consultant piece. I went to the consultant person, and she brought me in. My first client as a business of my own actually came through another company, Robert Half. I had someone I'd worked with. I'd worked with Robert Half with some of my clients because they needed temporary employees. So I worked with them, and I had a rep that I worked with, and we'd done a number of projects together. And her and I had created a good business relationship, and we talk regularly. And they had a job, an organization needed an interim leader and needed a change process done, and so they facilitated. And so I had another business. We were working for one business to work with another one, and then they were paying my business. So it was interesting, but took a little bit of the profitability off. But it was a great way to start because I had a little bit of support system from business. Half project was a difficult one, but we got it. And I ended up having a ton of them after that, word of mouth.
So, suppose a potential customer comes to you, they want to use your services. Do like all three of y'all have to agree to take this customer on? Is it like this one person does? How's that work?
Yeah, we look at who's the best person to do it. If it's a big change cultural process, it's Josh. And it depends. If it's local government, it's me. If it's food and beverage, it's him. But we meet with the client. We do a pre-scoping. Usually that's Josh and they will tell us, and then we'll do a back with it. Okay, here's what we see needs to be done. And they can agree, disagree, and then we tell them this is who's going to do it. They differ from that.
Has this ever happened? Like, customer comes to you, you do all this kind of stuff. We'll say you and Josh say we're gonna take on as a customer, but the third guy was like, I don't know, I have a bad feeling about this. Like, I don't know if you take this on.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Chris hasn't jumped in that way because he's busy with clients. He's doing mostly work, and he's coming into that. We have had a couple that we have followed up with because of that. We all three talked about it and said, yeah, that's not really in our line of business. We had a number of those. But if that happened, we would listen and talk it out because we believe in the vibe and
Yeah.
in people's intuition.
So how do all three of you stay on the same page, so to speak?
It helps that we're all business serves our each of our individual purposes, but we make sure we're doing what we like. We have a meeting every Friday. The three of us get together and talk about because we do that. I live in south of Seattle. Josh lives in the Olympia area, and Chris lives in Arizona.
Oh wow.
So he does a lot of remote work.
Okay.
So we have that dynamic. We do get together as much as we can. He does come up here regularly. Well, all three of you at the trade show. So that's another positive of the trade show is the three of us get together and spend it together. So to me, it's about modeling what we teach other people to do.
Is there a plan to bring on a fourth person anytime soon?
Yeah, we'll love to expand. We have a fourth person on the team, Lisa. She's my assistant, and she supports us all.
I guess I mean another fourth person.
Yeah,
Like y'all,
as far as a consultant, yeah. To me, to do the work, it takes a certain skill set and certain willingness to be ultra humble, to put yourself in a toxic situation, to protect yourself. But yeah, we're looking for anybody who listens and says, I really am interested in maybe doing something.
And what kind of speaking engagements have you done in the past, or are you looking to do in the future?
I've done group ones, where I've done groups of a couple hundred talking about whatever subject, usually teams, or toxic work
And I'm
culture.
guessing that you get paid for these. How do you determine the like the pricing for these speaking engagements?
I have I work with a now service who does that for me.
Okay.
And they determined it. But before that, it was based on, there's a few of them I did for nothing. There's a few of them I did for, how much, it depends on the organization. I did a couple of them for nonprofits that were, said, well, we got this amount to pay you. I said, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
So and to me, I think it comes down to how much people want me to speak and whether my message is resonating or not. Value is determined by the market.
What's the most people you've spoken in front of so far? Okay. And do you find the way you prepare for a speech is different based on the size of the group?
No, not really. It's really about the subject and where the group might be for them. We did a book launch, which is for my book, and it wasn't a big group. It was but it was very difficult because everybody in the room I knew. So, my wife was there, my kids were there, all so, which made it very fun, but also doing, talking about what I need to talk about. But I think it's more about what the audience needs and is looking for, that I can give than the number.
So how do you approach it? Like, do you like practice, rehearse, or you like wing it, or you have like bullet points in your head and just talk off those? How do you approach it?
I I prep. I do a lot of it. I believe in reacting to the audience. So if I'm going in a direction, they're snoozing, then I'm in the wrong space. So I'm here to do something. I'm here to actually, my goal is always to touch them emotionally if I can. That's how they can be impacted. And so I'm going to prepare with statistics. And I know that when you communicate, there are four main communications. So I want to connect with all four of them during the process. And then I want to watch the group and play off of them, kind of counter punches at work, so I can give them the best experience that I can.
So when you speak, unless the post is 100 people, right? And you know, it's like 50 have the phones out. Or you're like, man, I'm doing something wrong, have the phones out. Or you're like, okay, they have the phones out. They must be like tweeting about it or putting on social media. Like,
Yeah, to me, I don't worry about the phones anymore.
okay,
To me, I'm looking at their eyes.
okay,
I'm looking at their body. How are they reacting? If they're, even with a phone in your hand, if you're sitting forward, you're engaged, and there's signals to me that you're engaged. And if I'm looking at 100 people, I want that 70% rule. If 70 are engaged, I'm in pretty good shape. If 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 I'm at the 10 range, I'm not engaging them. They're not hearing.
well, they have the phone out like that. You probably, okay, they might be recording me.
That's right.
And they're going to put them on their social media.
That's right. So, um, again, I think it's about that engagement, about creating rapport between people. Doing that, I know I'm doing that. It's great, and a lot of times, if someone's going to change you or remember something, you genuinely.
Yeah. And so you said you also wrote a book.
I did write.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's called The Human Centered Team, and so it's based on. It talks about the.
Was that through Amazon or you actually published it?
No, we published.
Okay.
And it took a year. So when they tell you that it takes a year to write a book, it takes to a day. I started the book and then we did the exactly. It was a great experience. It was a lot more personal than I thought it would be. Yes, talked about the Akramoff method, and we talk about the pillars, but we also talk about the keys to building a successful team. And then I have stories that relate to life, those lessons. And when we started, I didn't think it would be that. I thought it was sterile, and it wasn't. But I'm happy.
And when was it released?
January 19th.
Okay, so just pretty recently.
Yeah.
And how the book sales been for you?
Not great, but again, it's that marketing.
Mhm.
I think if I'd have been doing this starting in January, it might have been different.
So why did you decide to write a book?
I had it on my list always.
Okay.
For the last 15 years. Did fits and starts, but got connected with someone who helped me kind of get through the process and helped me organize it, right? And I worked closely with an editor. It's fantastic. But I wanted to do it. I knew I had things that I could share. Help. And I also knew that if it was another thing we could use when I do trainings.
Can you talk about the book writing process, like how that worked for you? Or maybe how it didn't work in some cases?
It actually did. The hard part was finding the time because I was super busy. I wrote it 22, started in January 20th of 22, and then we published January 3. So there were times when like we talked about earlier, at 9 o'clock, I got a deadline to deliver a piece of the book. I got to go do this. One of the things that was nice though is I didn't do it all typing. We did we started the book where we did what we called a writer's retreat, and I talked for 6 hours. And we started developing it from that recorded talk. And did a number of recordings throughout. So that's one of the things we found out was that it was
So you would record it and you go back later and like type your voice notes up, or someone else did that for you?
someone else did.
Okay.
And there's some AI stuff that does that. But and then the editor just kind of back and forth. I think that's the creative process of it is something we start. It's not linear. You don't write the book linear. We wrote sections of it and then moved things around.
So it's not like you got to write 10 pages a day. You just
No, you did like I said, we did that retreat and then we kind of put all that in words and then we started massaging it and then it started to evolve into hey, this makes sense. This is a chapter. This is a chapter. Hey, this is a follow-up. Hey, this is a story. So then the editor, one of the things that I really liked about Jonathan was he said, let's make this like a movie. So we tell the concept and then we do a cutaway to a scene where you tell a story. So that's how it's set up. And I also wanted to make sure that this was not a long, difficult, because I wanted frontline employees to as much as I wanted leaders to. So it's not a long read. Everyone's told me who's read it. It's a very quick read. It moves real fast. So that's what I wanted. Because if you've got someone who's a frontline employee who eventually will become a leader, but wants to impact their organization in a positive way, is feeling desperate, read the book and can take some things from it. I think that's
what percentage of book sales do you have to give Amazon? How's that work?
Amazon's actually it's pretty easy to work with. You don't have to have a percentage.
Okay.
You set up an account with them. People order it. They print it, and send it to them.
Okay. So we talked about this earlier a little bit, but how do you take care of yourself?
That's been a lifelong journey, for sure. For me, I need to exercise regularly. It's stress relief, but it also my life. I was an athlete. Staying in touch with that is important to me. So one of the things I've learned recent as I've gotten older is I don't need to, and I've got a coach. I recommend that. This is I've just started working with one the last 3 months, and he's fantastic and helps me be accountable for that. But he's customized it for me. So I need to exercise, but I don't need to exercise every day. I don't have to. I'm not trying to make the Olympics. I'm just trying to be in shape. Goals changed now to I want to be able to do what I do, whatever I want. So if I want to go golf, go golf. If I want to go, hike 10 miles, I can do that without killing. I think the other, so that's the physical part. I also shared with you before that I have had migraine headaches for 10 years, and for me, it's almost not fully diet. So we changed the diet. I've only had one in the last 45 days. I'm used to having 25 a month. So for me, that's what I learned that I really need to watch what I put in. And that's very personal for everyone. I also learned that I can't count on medical in that way. So went through that entire process, which they were helpful because they eliminated everything else with the help of my coach. So there's that. So that's the physical part. Then there's we talked earlier about gratitude. I have a number of practices that I do to keep my emotions going, which is, showing gratitude, being humble, taking time to do what I love to do. It's a hobby. Going horse races, spending time with the family, watching certain sports. Those sort of things that just take my mind off of the And then the last one is the kind of the mental health piece, is making sure that I'm in a good space. I have someone to talk to, a support system in place, so that I don't let our family grew up. I mean, we're half Russian. My grandfather came from Russia. I took that mantra when I was younger. Is we just don't, as men, we don't talk about things. And my dad was a police officer. That made it just even more worse. So eventually we broke that. But making sure that I share what I need to share. Don't let, if I'm feeling down, I don't let it manifest itself. And then if it does start going bad, that I go get some coach, someone to talk to, and make sure I'm expressing. The other part that I think that we miss a lot in our society is making sure that you know loss. I'm very in touch with loss. Loss doesn't have to be bad. It can be losing a job. It can be losing a friend. It can be, selling your house. I mean, it's a lot of different things. But understanding, so I stay really in touch with myself. What am I feeling a sense of loss or elation? So I think I spend a lot of, I have some self-awareness practices.
So every day, how do you make sure you're focused on priorities 1, 2, and 3 versus priorities number 75 and 76?
I have a list. I'm a list guy, but it's not an exhaustive list. Each week I organize myself. I have a one-page list. I have it broken down into a number of factors. One is always what project. So if I'm writing, I have writing. I have one for the business. I have one for the clients. I have one for correspondence. I have one for health, and then I have one for kind of family. So it reflects my values. So, and it only has so many lines. Once the lines fill up, that's all I got. I don't add anymore. I will redo. I redo it every Sunday night. Most of the time, it's not all full, and so every week each of them are numbered, and I go about doing it. So, as an example, this week we were doing some invoicing for business, part to play. So I have that in the top of my list. The day that it's due, tell people it's day. I go about prioritizing each day. It's important to do it every morning. So I have my weekly. I know what I'm going to concentrate on. And what's on that list is what it is. Now, yes, there's some seats that pop up, but most of them, that's and so that's what I focus on. I just work down my list. I don't beat myself up if I don't finish it. If I don't finish it, I just prioritize next week those things that I didn't get done.
How about this? Suppose there's something on your list, right? It's not priority 1, 2, or 3, but it's on your list, right? And you notice after 3 weeks, man, this thing's still on my list. You like, okay, obviously it's not important enough to be on my list. You just take it off, or like how do you do that?
Depends on what it is. So what I do is evaluate. So as an example, as I'm walking and running, if I don't have the right shoes and they're out of shape, my feet will hurt. So I know I just took my last pair of shoes out of the box. So now I'm going to order another one so I have one. That's been on my list for 3 weeks. I know it needs to be done before my other ones wear out, but I'm not going to take it off because I don't want it to go away. So that's an example of one where it was set on my list for a while. I also have one that I write on the bottom that says future list. So if there's something I want to add. But when I get super busy, those things can fall off. And I don't want them. And then the whole process of, they'll be at the bottom of the list and they kind of move up. And if they keep getting moved to the bottom, you ask yourself, do I really do it? Or is it something I need to do? And sometimes the answer is, you're fooling yourself. Yeah.
So how do you go about protecting your time?
I'm very protective of my schedule. So, if I let my schedule get out of control, it will make my life. Couple rules around that. I don't schedule meetings back to back. I require 15 minutes and I will reschedule them or not accept. So I think that's the other part, is just because someone sends me an invite doesn't mean I have to accept it. And it's always a negotiation. You can negotiate it different. And I have to evaluate whether the other part is that this is something I've given on in the past, but I no longer will, which is my workouts and things go on my schedule and will not move. I come first.
So you're an early morning workout guy,
Yeah,
midday,
I
late
like-
day?
I like-
Morning's okay.
And the good thing about that is if I got to work 6 to 6.
You go to gym or you work out at home?
No, I work out at home.
Okay. So how do you do, for lack of a better term, how you deal with needy clients? Like someone's like always calling you, always emailing you, always wanting more of your time.
I think I talked about earlier about that. Very clear about that. So they know that when and I tell them, during the week, 11 p.m. But on the weekends, if I'm doing something, I've got other priorities that I want to do. That's being very clear at the beginning of the process. And that's also a lesson. Some you don't think are going to be needy and are, and then needy at different times. I think that's the other part that I need to understand because of the work we do. There are times that they're going to be need to plan. So I need to understand that, hey, when change process is at its peak and everyone's stressed, the leader, when people are breaking down at work, the leader's going to make sure. There are times that can't happen throughout the entire process, but I need to be aware.
What's the max number of clients you and your team can handle at one time?
Well, we had 5 at one time last year. Most of them were mine. And if I'm doing just consultant work, I can handle 3 of them.
Okay.
Josh can probably handle that. Chris probably. If we're embedded, if we're doing a lot of specific work or I'm doing an interim leader,
So you already talked about your company some. Can you go in more details, like why you started, what you focus on now, and the future vision for your company?
sure. I started it because the company that I was working with before is a great company, fantastic work. We just do different work, and we weren't getting the synergy both really wanted, and I wanted being in control. And so that's why I started it. Where I've shared today about our market changed. Where we're going is mentioned earlier. I definitely want to find some partners to help employees before they get into it. So to get them ready to promote, to be a resource, because there's not a lot of resources out there for someone, and there are some, but there aren't a lot of them where, say, a high school senior doesn't know where to go, really needs to get a job, isn't going to go to college, or a college graduate who doesn't have a profession just to jump into, like a lawyer or what, having a resource to help them find a job, find the right fit, be able to manage their hiring process, not for them, but with them, those sort of things. You see a market for it. So we're looking at doing something there. We definitely want to help develop more and better leaders. So that sort of thing. So continuing to get that out. And continuing to, we want to build our teams bigger. I'd like to be able to teach concepts that we use to other people so
So Glenn, is there anything else that I asked that I didn't ask you or anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. You did pretty good. You asked a lot of stuff.
All right. So Glenn, can you give us any last minute advice or wisdom or anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, to me, I think that everyone deserves a good work. And if you're in a bad and about somewhere between 80 and 90% of you are in some form or fashion, you don't have to leave. They talk about on LinkedIn, well, you get a bad manager, you leave. You get a bad organization, you leave. That doesn't mean you're going to find a good one. So you got to make that decision whether you want to stay there. But understand that you can. Leaders, I know you're busy. I know you're understaffed. I know you got to take on things you didn't think you would have to. Some of you don't have any training for this at all. You think you're not doing a good job. In some ways you are, some ways you aren't. Ask for help. Get help. Call us. Yeah, that's awesome. But find someone to help you get through this and help your organization. Because the bottom line makes a big difference, but the human impact that working in a toxic place is killing the world. So that's really we want you to have. We can help you do that. Great. We can't. Good. I just want you.
Glenn, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.